Hope you're gonna last longer than 2 rounds, Exile. Now that you're permanent discard for life, hi, Zizaran here with another video. We are going to talk about the Ultimatum League. Is it fun? Are you bored of it? Rewards, enemies? Like, we're going to talk about all of Ultimatum now that we've played it for 1 month. So, Ultimatum League is basically you encounter this Taskmaster, Trialmaster, whatever he's called, and there will be a couple of different ways you can interact with the league mechanic. There will be the run in circles for 3 minutes, which is basically you don't have to stand inside them. You can like run through them, but either way, it'll be the circles that you can like run through. That one just feels terrible. Even after the buff, it's just very unenjoyable. I still always skip it. I think for this to feel okay, this should be probably the rarest and most rewarding mechanic, where it maybe only appears like a lot less, but when you get it, it's so rewarding. They're like, yeah, this doesn't necessarily feel that good standing still or running through these circles, but it's so rewarding and it's really exciting. Maybe a higher chance for the Trialmaster to spawn, something like that. But either way, like, or just don't have that. That was never going to go down well. Anyway, other than that, there are 3 other options. We have survive, we have kill the monsters, and we have kill the monsters before they kill the totem in the middle. And they're a lot better. I'm not a huge fan of survive either. I feel like, and I mean, there was somebody made like a spreadsheet of like how rewarding they were, like stone circles versus survive versus the 2 kill ones, and the 2 kill ones were by far more rewarding as well. So I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the ones that already feel the best being the most rewarding. You can at least balance it out by the ones that, yeah, they feel worse, but they are more rewarding, so they are worth doing in spite of that. Because when you have the 2 that are already the worst and feel the worst, that they're also the least rewarding, then that just ends up being a skip. And that's not necessarily good. However, it's a pretty okay league, to be honest. It's a pretty strong league. I think they've done something that I haven't really seen that much in other league mechanics. And I'd say that Ultimatum have a very high ceiling. Like, even being able to survive in them, like, what I mean by that is, like, obviously they did say that to get to the like last rituals or last ultimatums of this league, you would have to have a strong build, but they've really delivered on that. But in a weird way where I don't feel like in a lot of league mechanics, there's very spiky damage. Like Blight had like sometimes like the fire blight monsters will just burst you down, or like some of the bosses will just one-shot you. Legion, obviously there were like 8 or 9 one-shot mechanics in Legion, and Metamorph also had like 200 or 300 one-shot mechanics. But for Ultimatum, it's actually relatively even. They're very hard all the time. Like, I felt like it's a little bit build limiting, because I feel like you are very, very rewarded for getting a build that has like high block with life or ES unblock, or a high dodge build, or like very, very insane mitigation. So I do feel like you need a very specific set of defense that you don't normally need for mapping, but you will need for the ultimatums. And I mean, this is actually very, very interesting, because there's nothing in particular from the ultimatums that I've been like, this is really scary. Like, for example, let's use Metamorph as an example, right? Like Horror Barrage or Soul Barrage would just be like, oh, your character's gonna vaporize. Whereas I don't feel like there's any equivalent here in Ultimatum. I feel like the entire encounter is very balanced, and that's kind of nice to see in a way. Like, it's a very linear difficulty curve too. There's not like suddenly something coming out of left field. There are some things that are a little bit annoying, like the new allies cannot die. I think it's a little bit weird. It just feels weird in the game. I don't think it has a big place in the game. It feels very out of place. I'm like, oh, I just have to run a bit, I guess. Like, they just can't be damaged. Cool. But either way, well balanced difficulty. Like, no spiky stuff, just generally really hard all the time. And obviously you could get unlucky and backtrack into a lot of mobs hitting you. But I've felt like this is a fairly balanced mechanic in a lot of ways. So far this league, I've played 320 hours of Path of Exile, and a little bit more off stream. 320, that's just the hours that I've streamed. So I haven't found the Trialmaster more than one time. I found him the one time that I died to him. I was very, very unprepared. I didn't even see that it was spawning. Went in on a 5-link, out of flasks, and I just got completely obliterated. And it was a fairly dangerous map that I went in. That's the only time I've got him. Now, to be fair, I have been playing the game very differently this league because I am playing Trade League. I've been, let's not play super meta builds. Let's play different stuff. I did the strength stacking build, and I've tried like experimenting with different builds that I normally wouldn't. Hopefully people watching me have been enjoying that. But because of that as well, I obviously haven't been doing like the spam like 300 maps an hour that I like normally would, right? So I haven't done as many maps as normal, but it's still insane to me that even though I did 3 or 4 days of lab, that was just 4 days. And it's insane to me that like the majority of my time has been doing like tier 11 to tier 16 maps, and I've only encountered him once. That's insane, because that means that there's such a large amount of the player base that I've just never fucking seen the guy. And that's not good, in my opinion. So if you're wondering what the spawn rate is, it's a 1% chance above tier 11 maps and a 2% chance above tier 14s. But the problem with something that rare is that if you're very unlucky, then you can go a long time without seeing him. Like, there's a friend of mine that plays less than me and has gotten him like 9 or 10 times. But when you are on the unlucky end of the spectrum, it just feels incredibly bad. So I've never been a big fan of these like RNG bosses. It's kind of interesting because I do really like RNG, but not when they're this rare or have the opportunity to be this rare. I've never been a fan of the delve bosses, especially not Owl. Whenever they have something so like important like the amulets gated behind them, I'm like, I haven't seen Owl in 9 months, by the way, and I delve usually down to like 400 to 600 every league. Sure, it's not a lot, but it's still like crazy to me that I haven't found Owl. I think they've done the way you're fighting and finding the Maven very, very good. Actually, I think that's great. I hadn't even thought about it, but that's so amazing the way they've done how we get to fight Maven. You can spam like the 10-way fights. You can roll them high and you might get 3 splinters, or you can do them very, very easy and you might get 0 to 1 splinters. You can do the even more advanced fights and get 4 to 6 splinters, or you can do a really well rolled the Ferret and get a full Maven fight. Really well done. It's very clear what you have to do to fight the Maven. There's no RNG or very little RNG. It's very deterministic based on your actions and your choices. Whereas, not a big fan of the Taskmaster, Trialmaster. I really don't know which one it is at this point. The Trial Taskmaster. Other than that, there are a lot of good things as well about Ultimatum. And by the way, this isn't my favorite league. I think it's a very okay league. I would rate it maybe around a 6 sounds fair. Like, it is a pretty decent standalone league considering there's no expansion content or anything. It's a very, very strong okay league, but nothing that like blows me out of the water like Synthesis, which was my favorite league. Unpopular opinion, but there we go. It was very cool. It was everything I wanted. Let's talk a little bit about the rewards of Ultimatum. So Ultimatum absolutely shits out Chaos Orbs. Like, whenever I usually will do it all the way till the end, and it's not infrequent that I will get something like 10 to 20, with the most Chaos Orbs I got was 26 or 28 from one Ultimatum. That is insane. That is a crazy amount. And I remember on day 2 or 3, I had like 120, 180 Chaos without trading, and I was like, that's a large amount of just like sitting there. You do get a large amount of like regrets, a large amount of regrets. Decent amount of Exalted Shards, 6 things and 5 links. 5 links are very common, 6 things are not too infrequent. And yeah, some of the rares are really, really good as well. It's not exactly Smart Loot like we saw in Heist, but sort of similar. Maybe a slightly watered down version of Smart Loot. I've had a few rares that are like, wow, this is a really good rare item. And again, they've put fractured and synthesized items in there, which I'm a big fan of. And for the time invested, Ultimatum is really, really rewarding. And I feel that they've done a pretty good job of that. It's rewarding during the campaign. Like, it feels pretty good to do early, especially on your first character. I wouldn't necessarily ever do it while leveling, except maybe as like a catch-up mechanic. Maybe I'm a little bit behind on XP, but I wouldn't be doing it on a new character for loot. I would just be doing that on my first or maybe second character through the league to get additional stuff while leveling. So honestly, well done. Really good job. I'm always very impressed when they manage to get a league mechanic that's great during the leveling process, Delirium probably being one of the best ones there, where you would actively do it while leveling as well. And then you also have that it's really, really good at all different tiers of maps. There are very clear advantages of doing it in tier 16s versus tier 1 maps. You can spam it very, very quickly in low maps for just like a large amount of like currency rewards, some random div cards and stuff like that. Very, very good in low tier maps, and also like incredibly good in tier 16s, where you're getting more of the high rewards and like winged scarabs and stuff like that. So very well done there. Some of the challenges that you can choose to fight against in these ultimatums are a little extreme compared to the reward, because I would have rather see chaos. Like, say you're fighting the chaos miasma thing, I would have rather see that resulting in more chaos items, and gating the rewards a little bit behind what you're willing to fight, because then you can have that the easy rewards, like for example like ruin and miasma, and what else, like some of them are just completely free, right? As long as you're moving, ruin's not going to hit you unless you have a build that you need to stand still. I don't know, charge dash. I don't know what builds people are playing that might struggle with ruin, but so far none of my builds have had any problem with it. Ruin has been a completely free mod. I think I've lost one encounter the entire league to ruin, and I was busy reading chat. Miasma as well, like the damage is very low. Even though I have like minus 30 chaos res, that cloud doesn't really do much to me. So both of those are like, you know, pretty free mods. There's other ones that are more challenging, like the lightning circles. While not being absolutely devastating and ripping your run, they are an added challenge, and for some characters can be a lot of damage. The fire skulls can burst you down and be pretty dangerous. Razor blades, I'd say that one is fairly free as well, but you know, it does rely on the character having bleed immunity all the time. The cold pustules as well can be fairly dangerous, slows you down, and really, really annoying and well designed. And then there are some that are free depending on your build, right? You have the lightning on mana cost, and you have the like criticals are unlucky, and the limited arena, which just seems like a buff for me. Like the mobs stand closer together so I can kill more of them at the same time. This is great. That's the first one I pick all the time. I can see that being like a little bit sketchy if you have a weaker build. But the ultimatum mods, there are a lot of really cool ones, but I would have liked to see the reward gated a little bit behind them. There are some that are like absolutely destructive. Like, yeah, you might fire projectiles in random directions, but there's multiple projectiles from the enemies. You just get nuked to death, right? That's one of the most dangerous ones there. And there are some of them, like the totem as well, can be pretty dangerous. I would have loved to see that, like, maybe there's a rare one, like say the critical one appears or something, like you have some specific crit mods or crit uniques gated behind those. I feel like it could be similar to the quant and rarity system, where like the easier mods, they don't add as much rarity or quant, and the higher ones add more. Maybe they already experimented with that and found that it didn't work for whatever reason, but I feel like it's a little bit strange for me. I feel like it's a little samey what I end up picking. And the enemies themselves, some of them are very, very dangerous, like the snakes and like the big totem boys. There's like the Val boys, maybe I'll call them. There's some like big dudes and they're like pretty scary. The monkeys I've found is pretty okay. Another thing about the fight, I don't think it has much in terms of visual clarity. Several times this league, I've actually taken damage even though I'm on block or dodge builds, and I've been like, what actually damaged me there? And it's been like oftentimes like strings of like silver or red, like a line between two monsters, sort of like searing bond, but very hard to see, and it's been pretty dangerous. It is massively a clusterfuck, and you are kind of running like run, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. It's interesting, but yeah, visual clarity went out the window. So should Ultimatum go core? And is this something they're gonna add Atlas passives for? I think this is a easy... I'm not a big fan of throwing league mechanics into the game, but I think this is an easy thing to throw into the game. It doesn't really like matter much. Like if you've encountered one recently, it can just be like a fairly rewarding thing that you get now and again. I think it's a thing. As I said, I'm not a big fan of putting things into the core game. Oh, 18%, here you go. But this is the thing that works fairly well for that. And I would be surprised to see this not go core. It's obviously very similar to Ritual. Ritual went core and got Atlas passives that even make it better than it was in Ritual League, and that is very common that the league sometimes, in other ways, will get better than it was originally. So maybe that'll happen to Ultimatum as well. Maybe we'll get some crazy Atlas passives that break it. As far as fighting the Trialmaster and his abilities, I've literally only fought him once, like I said, so I can't comment that much on it. He had some chains, he had the things that I already picked from the encounter. There was some weird stuff happening. It wasn't that clear. The fight was a bit messy from what I saw. But fights often are on the first time you're fighting them. Either way, like I said, I'm pretty happy with giving Ultimatum a 6. Pretty happy with giving it a 6. I hope you guys are enjoying the league. I hope you guys are enjoying all the videos. Thanks for all the support. Sub if you like the video. But more importantly, try to die less than I do.